Hello and welcome back, everybody. I hope you guys are having a really great day. I'm having a really great day. Thanks for joining for another episode of Tableau Tip Tuesday, the series where we shine a light on some of Tableau's capabilities. From beginners to expert, join us every week to learn some hidden gems to take your skills to a new level. Alright, as the title of the video suggests, today we're going to be going over calculations here, table calculations specifically. And before we dive into actually building our own views here, there's one thing we want to understand about where these objects are processed. So I'm going to pull a graphic up onto the screen right here. This is Tableau's query architecture. And essentially, just to break this graphic down for you, every single time we move any field from our data pane to our structure shelf, as this graphic in the top left represents, Tableau is using the proprietary driver VizQL to turn your mouse clicks into SQL code. It then sends that query to your data source, which will then aggregate data to the level of detail of your view. Remember, level of detail is just a fancy way of saying the discrete fields that you have in play. So this is to limit the amount of row level data that exists on your PC and instead keeping them in their much more secure server. Now, as soon as that data is passed back to Tableau, we have a secondary type calculation called a table calculation that can occur. So whereas your server is going to be computing and aggregated results for any calculated field, a table calculation is processed on results that are stored locally on your machine. Alright, so we could go into a lot more detail about that. I just wanted to be very clear about the fact that a calculation will occur on your server, while a table calculation will leverage your local machine's computing power in order to achieve those results. So if you ever have a slow performing workbook, remember you can always go up to your help menu right here, down to settings and performance, and start a performance recording which will help you pinpoint which calculations are slowing up your visualization if you guys do indeed have slow visualizations. Alright, so how do we ensure that these calculations are performed on locally stored results? Well, that's easy. We just locally store them first. So again, we have a continuous sales on text right here giving us these results aggregated to the level of detail of category. And now we have a small table, 1 column, 3 rows sitting behind this page in Tableau. So if we would like to apply a table calculation, we can go into that caret menu of our field, go to a quick table calculation, and here are the 11 different table calculations that Tableau is capable of. Now, just a word for the wise, these are kind of point and click options. I typically like to go the longer way to accomplish these things. I find that it makes it so that I'm going to miss or forget less steps. So typically, rather than taking a quick table calculation, whereas I see if I assign a quick table calculation of running total, and now we can see my results are indicative of that running total rather than their individual aggregated results. However, if I go back into that field, we'll notice some other options that we can now click. Now, I don't like that second pass at a field, so let's go ahead and clear that. And I will almost always prefer to go to that same drop down and just select the option right above, Add Table Calculation. Now this is going to open up a dialog box for our table calculations, as you can see on the screen right here. And now we can take stock of all of the different calculations. For example, previously we did a running total. But all my additional options, such as how I sum or average these and or the directions that we would like to calculate this in, which we'll touch on here in a second, we can take stock of all those options just on one nice sheet right there. Alright, so as we can see, my running total right here is now applied to my field. We can tell that because there is that small triangle that exists right here on the end of it, which is indicating that there is a table calculation applied to that measure. Now, as you can see from our view, we sacrifice that measure. So it is no longer the sum of sales, but rather a calculation based off of those sums. So if we would like to see those initial values or those individually aggregated results, we can always pull in a fresh copy of sales to our chart and see those side-by-side numbers. So now we can validate those results and ensure that we have the correct running total running down our screen. Alright, so with just one quick level of detail in category here, it's very easy as to which way this is summing up. So it's moving down the column and summing up till it gets to the end of the table. And if I go back into my field, we can see in my compute using section that table down is going to be its default mode of summing those values. All right, so if we add another level of detail, let's go ahead and add subcategory to our view. Well, this is going to introduce us to a couple of new terms called scope and direction. So we can see that running down the side of my pane, it is totaling, but right here, once it gets to office supplies, you can see that it just keeps on summing from previous values. Now with our scope, we can scope our table calculation to be either table, pane, or cell. And then we can choose a direction either down or across based on the orientation of my chart, as we see on the screen right here. All right, so if we would like to restart it at each given pane, we just have to go back into that field right here, go to my compute using section, and now we have a different option of pane down. And in this case, panes are indicated by category levels of detail, as we can see organized over on the left-hand side of my chart right there. So if we would like to, we could go to compute using, press pane down, and now you can see that whenever it reaches the edge of that pane, in this case between furniture and office supplies, it's going to restart that running total and continue to do that all the way down to the bottom of the chart. So scope and direction, either the entire table, the entire pane, or the entire cell, and then which direction your chart goes in by swapping my axes right here, or indeed by simply having another level of detail. If we go in now, we'll have even different compute using options of across then down and down then across, indicating how that running total is going to sum up those values. All right, so what if we cannot find it using a simple scope and direction? Well, we can always tell it which dimensions we would like to use to dictate the start. So in this case right here, I have another visualization, which is just category and market sales. And for example here, if we wanted to do a pane down running total, we could do it and it would sum up all these markets within this category. But let's say, for example, I would like all of my Asia Pacific markets right here. I want to do a percent of total and I want to aggregate these results within the market while leaving the category untouched. Well, that's another option inside of this field. So let's go ahead and we're going to do our initial add table calculation right here. We're going to apply a percent of total, where we can see that now my entire table, based on the default of table down compute using, we can see that the entire table is adding up to 100%. Now, if we wanted to verify that, we can simply select all of those marks, wait for our tooltip here, and we can see up at the very top that that is indeed adding up to 100%. Well, if I select pane down, that's not going to give me the results that I would like. Now I have an entire category that is again equaling 100%, as we can see in our tooltip again right there. Well, remember, my preferred calculation here is going to be taking all of my Asia Pacific markets and aggregating those results. I want all of my Asia Pacific to add up to 100%, all of my EMEA to add up to 100%, so on and so forth. And again, if we do our validation here, you can see that with our current selection of all the EMEA, we have 107.1% of total sales. So again, we know that we are not within our chosen scope and direction. So in our table calculation here, we're just going to scroll down to specific dimensions, and now you can see that we can select the values that we would like to add up to 100% by using the radio buttons right here. Now, the best way that I can describe it is whatever is not checked, in this case market, is what's going to add up to 100%. But again, I would always take the time to validate those results by selecting those marks and ensuring that you have your 100% there. All right, so let's see another example here. We're going to do a quick moving average. So let's go ahead and get our time series made here. We'll go to a continuous month and we'll present sales in this chart. So if we would like to see a moving average of sales, we can once again go into that field, ensuring that those results are locally stored in this PC. And we can go to add table calculation, calculation type, moving calculation, and now again we have all of the options that we want for this calculation present in one single menu, rather than having to go through and say average that with the previous 3 values, with the previous 4 values, or whatever your analysis requires there. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll accept the defaults right here. I'm going to go ahead and close this dialog window here, and now we have a nice moving average. Well, one thing that is really good with moving calculations here is we want the regards to the baseline. We want the regular sales indicated as well, so we can see the moving average moving across. So if we take this field right here and hold Control to duplicate, we can see it's not going to work exactly the way that we want, because it is going to duplicate with that table calculation already applied. So let's go ahead and remove that field. We'll go down to our data pane. We'll drag a fresh instance of sales up to our structure shelf here. And now we can right click to go to a dual axis. Again, whenever you go dual axis, you always want to ensure that you right click and synchronize those axes if required. Again, that might take a little bit of knowing your data here, but we always want to make sure we're at least asking the question of whether we synchronize or whether we do not synchronize. All right, that brings us to our last subject here where we can write our own table calculations. So far we've been going into these fields and applying a table calculation right here. But to anybody that has a little bit of familiarity with Tableau, we've probably at some point or another seen inside of our calculated field editor right here that we have a table calculation section up here in our catalog. So table calculations here, we see things such as window average and things of that nature. And the window is whatever exists in the view that this calculation is being applied to. So that ties back to that whole idea that the results need to be locally stored before I can calculate off of those values. So what our goal here is we're going to make a control chart here where we're going to have reference lines moving across each of these specific panes that is 1 plus or minus standard deviation from the average of the sales for that year. So I have one of the calculations already created right here just so we can take a look, and then we'll write the second one our own. Essentially what we have here is we're taking the window average of the sum of sales and we're subtracting 1 standard deviation from that window average. So if we press OK and use that field inside of our view, I like to use the detail shelf because it's not going to change my view at all. However, you do want to ensure that you have that in there, so now I can right click my axis and base a reference line off of it. So you'll notice that when I change the value right here, we have that instance of -1 standard deviation in there. We don't have profit or quantity or discount or any of our other measures simply because we did not use them in our chart. So when I select this, we should have a reference line going all the way across my table. Remember that the default is going to be table across for these table calculations. Well, if I press OK here and we take a look at the field living on the detail shelf in my marks card, we can see that table calculation is applied. However, we need to change its scope. So we can go into there and edit our compute using and say, I want a different reference line per pane. I don't want to use my 2013 values inside of 2012. So restart my calculation every time I get to a new year. And in this case, our new years are dictated by pane across. All right, so let's go ahead and get the upper bound here, and we just want to change the color of this line represented on whether or not it lies within 1 standard deviation plus or minus or out, called a control chart. So we'll go to our calculated field editor here, we'll create another calculated field, and now we can start writing our calculation. So we're going to take the window average of the sum of sales, and then we're going to add 1 window standard deviation right down here of sum of sales. Close our parentheses here. Go ahead and close this editor and expand this just so we can make sure we don't have any errors. Scanning in the bottom left, calculation is valid. Let's give this a name, +1 standard deviation. And we'll go ahead and press OK. Now again, we need to use this in our view, so we're going to place this onto our detail shelf again. And now we're going to right click and base a reference line off of the top threshold of that. So we'll add another reference line. We'll base it off of the +1 standard deviation calculation that we just completed. And we'll press OK, remembering again that the table calculation itself thinks that the window from our window average function is going to be the length of the entire table. So we just need to come in here to our calculation and scope it to pane across, again leaving each of our different panes unique. All right, so now we could write another calculation if we would like. Let's go ahead and finish this chart out. We're going to create another calculated field that determines whether or not the value lies between these two reference lines. So in order to do that, we just write an if statement that says if the sum of sales is above the negative or the -1 STD. There we go. And sum of sales is above the +1 standard deviation. then we are in control. Else, we are out of control. And we'll end our if statement, and that should work just fine. So we'll say check if in control. We can go ahead and press OK right there. Then we can place that directly onto color. Now we're still going to notice some slightly wonky results here in that it almost looks like that orange to blue is a diverging palette. It is a two-color diverging, but it almost looks like a continuous gradient. Well, we know based on the discrete coloration of our pill that that shouldn't be a gradient like that. So if we would like to fix that issue, we'll just go dual axis with itself by duplicating sales up here. Going to dual axis here, and now leveraging the power of 3 marks cards to change one of these to a mark type of circle. And now we can color those circles instead of the lines, which I'm not 100% sure why this works, but you can see very nicely we have orange circles if that point is in control, and blue circles if it is out of control. All right, that's all we have for you this week. Join us next week for another tip.